Hello and welcome to this week's news bulletin from the Christian Institute. Leading scientists have accused the government of misleading the public over its plans to allow genetically modified babies. The group, including fertility expert Professor Lord Robert Winston, criticised the Department of Health for excluding the proposals from the definition of genetic modification. The techniques would discard the nucleus from a healthy donor egg and replace it with the nucleus from the prospective mother. Lord Winston told The Independent that the procedures are genetic modification, and this modification is handed down the generations. It is totally wrong to compare it with a blood transfusion or a transplant. Dr Ted Morrow, a senior research fellow at the University of Sussex, also criticised the new definition of genetic modification. My impression is the government is doing all it can to contain and define these kinds of terms in ways that favour mitochondrial replacement being introduced as an uncontroversial therapy. The government is pressing ahead with the plans to allow the technique, despite more than 60% of people being against the proposals in a consultation. A new poll shows that public opposition to assisted suicide grows dramatically when people are more informed of the arguments against it. The Comres survey asked over 2,000 adults for their position on assisted suicide before and after being presented with evidence about the practice. The poll found that overall opposition rose from 12% to 43% after hearing the arguments. 28% of those who were in support switched to opposition when they were told that vulnerable people may feel pressurised to end their life so as not to be a burden. 1 in 5 changed their minds when they were informed about other countries where assisted suicide has been extended to include disabled people and children. Nola Leach, Chief Executive of CARE, which commissioned the survey, said, "Our new polling demonstrates that the public tend to be in favour until they are presented with the stark implications of legalising assisted suicide and the evidence of pressure on vulnerable people within those countries which have done so. We are confident that by discussing these issues, the dangers posed by Lord Falconer's bill will be even more exposed." Last month, peers in the House of Lords decided Lord Falconer's bill to legalise assisted suicide should be sent to committee stage for further consideration. A leading sociologist has criticised Scotland's named person plans, saying they are evidence of the politicisation of parenting. Sociology Professor Dr Frank Furedi called the proposals grotesque and said child protection has become steadily more intrusive. Under the Children and Young People Scotland Act, every child under the age of 18 is to be assigned a state employee to monitor their well-being. Dr Furedi, author of the book Paranoid Parenting, wrote in The Independent, "Arguably the most disturbing manifestation of the politicisation of parenting is the Children and Young People Scotland Act. Government initiatives are underpinned by the assumption that parents cannot be trusted and must be subject to constant surveillance." The Prime Minister said Britain is leading the way in Europe on LGBT rights. David Cameron made the comments ahead of an annual homosexual event in Brighton. He said that Britain continues to be recognised as number 1 in Europe on lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender equality and rights. He added that the upcoming event is a fantastic celebration of the LGBT community and its contribution to the diversity and vibrancy of Brighton and Hove. The Christian Institute has previously raised concerns about Mr Cameron's priorities in this area. The Institute said he is doing little about the persecution of Christians abroad, while pledging to export homosexual rights across the world. Britain's largest abortion provider is under fire for suggesting that new mothers should be given morning after pills. BPAS, the British Pregnancy Advisory Service, raised the issue in a report on sex and contraception after childbirth. It discussed emergency hormonal contraception, or EHC, which is how it describes the morning after pill. The report concluded, consideration should be given to the advanced provision of EHC to new mothers in order that women have it at home if and when they should need it. A BPAS spokeswoman confirmed that innovative ways to support women after childbirth could include providing an advanced supply of the morning after pill before they left the hospital. But Josephine Quintavalli of the pro-life group Comment on Reproductive Ethics said the suggestion from BPAS is ridiculous. "It is absolutely extraordinary and patronising, and it is a negative statement about childbirth. You should send a bunch of flowers when someone has a baby. The message here seems to be, you've had a baby, make sure you don't get pregnant again." Well, that's all for this week. For more information and regular updates on all of our stories, plus much more, visit our website at christian.org.uk. Until next time, goodbye.